What's up? It's your boy Gunner, back at y'all again with another one. Black Eyes Band Dog TV, where the first order of business is and always is building leaders and creating kings operation by building national development over generations. Bottom line up front, coming to you, want to talk to y'all about some man shit, as I always do, but today was just something that was on my heart, just based on, circumstances surrounding me over the last past few years. So I coach youth football. More often than not, when I'm out there, I see plenty of men on the field, see plenty of men out there. You see plenty of women as well. Plenty of women, more often than not, you see a lot of moms and things of that nature, a lot of mothers out there, and more often than not, the men are out there, they're coaching or in some sort of coaching form, which is obviously what we need. But when I talk to these kids, these young men on the team, and they talking to me, it's something that I realize is special for them. It's something that they feel is needed for them. The way we talk to them, sometimes we're aggressive. The parents and the mothers might say that we're aggressive in our approach or how we talk to them, but the kids respond to it. They really like it. They really love it. So then it brought me to a thing like when I had that debate or had that conversation about how aggressive we, the coaches, are with the kids and things of that nature, as opposed to the mothers. When you hear the mothers out there, they zapping, cussing them out, be this, be that, they cussing them out, But then the coaches, and it's not a bad thing. They're not necessarily saying it's a bad thing. They just speaking on our aggression scale and oftentimes telling them just dial it down some and things of that nature. And it's situational because certain coaches do go too far. But deeper than that, these are a lot of young men and they really don't have men in their families. And that's the segue into my next point. A lot of them don't really have men in their families. A lot of them don't have a real live example of what men is in their family, let alone hard men. You see, they might have men in their family, but when we talking about men, we talking about hard men. Men with life skills that are hard, or men that are going to talk to you hard, men that's going to hold you accountable, and things of that nature. But then it brought me to a situation when I leave the field and I come into the family dynamic. More often than not, in our families, at least in the black community, our families are dominated more often than not by women. They're dominated by women. Dominated in terms of numbers. We're outnumbered more often than not. So then the conversation within that family dynamic is more oftentimes feminine. It's more oftentimes feminine. So then that's what brings me to the main point with what we got going on in Baltimore City. In Baltimore City, they want to talk about our young men and the youth and how far along they are and what they're not doing or what they could be or what they should be or what's some of the remedies. And then they say we need more men. And yeah, I agree with that we need more men. But the thing is, if we're outnumbered in our families, in the place where we start at, if we're outnumbered there, it's only but so much you can do about that. But if we're outnumbered there, then those young men still need an outlet. They still need somebody they can come to, somebody they can gravitate towards, that make them feel like I am one of you and I feel where you come from. More often than not, you get that not from the household, but you get it from outside. Get it from outside of the house. Get it from outside of the house, and oftentimes that outside influence lends itself to being a negative influence. But then let's take it back to the family dynamic real quick. Even in that household, when the young men are still young and they're growing up on the conversations, but it's multiple women around them. Often than not, you talking about hair and nails and who's cute and who ain't cute and how she dressed and how he dressed. And even if that family is a little bit rougher or tougher, that's predominantly what these young men are hearing, and you think that we're supposed to gravitate towards that, or that our young men supposed to gravitate towards that. And when we lean the opposite way and we go somewhere or we find something that's a little bit harder, you want to feel like, what's the problem? Or bigger than that, when they go somewhere that's a little bit harder that leads them down the wrong path, you want to feel like, what's the problem? The problem is we don't have enough men in the household. You say, well, that's your fault. And I wouldn't be hard pressed to say that to a large degree, and in some degree, that is our fault. But in the same sense, if that's even our dynamic when we're growing up, that we were outnumbered and grew up on nothing but women, and that's what raised us, and then they were outnumbered, that's what's raising them, and what we gravitated towards was more and more men That's how we started joining these little groups and these little organizations, these little packs or whatever the fuck you want to call them. That's how we started joining into them. Because we feel as if it's something that we don't get from our household. Something that we're missing. So we go to somebody else that understand me a little bit more. Let me be a little vulgar. Or maybe not vulgar, but a little more explicit. Young men that grow up in those environments, when they wake up and they little pain is hard in the morning, it's a joke in families. Or not even said nothing about. But when a young lady, she come on her cycle, she got multiple people in her family to tell her it's okay, it's normal, it's natural. And yeah, your mother can tell you you wake up with a hard on talking about it's natural, but man, you ain't, last I checked, you ain't, I don't think women had, So what's the conversation? What we talking about? You say if your father was in the house, he would be able to tell you that, yeah, but if your father in the house and then there's also 6 other girls inside of there, the conversation overwhelmingly and predominantly in that household is still feminine. And you wonder why our boys go to the left and become feminine as I don't know what. And or they go to the right and become radical or too hard or too aggressive. These young men are searching for something. And then when you talk to your daughters in the family, you ask them, how they feel, or what you got going on, or what you doing. They uncomfortable with talking to the men in the family. And you ask them why. They say, because I don't really have that type of relationship with my dad. Or I don't really have that type of relationship with my uncle. Well, you love your dad, right? Yeah, and your dad love you, right? Yeah. He around, right? Yeah, and your uncle around, right? Yeah. So why you don't really have that? I don't know, I just can't talk to him like that. Just can't talk to him like that because overwhelmingly, in your life, you always had the women to talk to. You always had them to talk to. You're more comfortable with talking to them. And I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't. What I'm just saying is your father or your uncle or your big cuz, they really not made privy to the things that you got going on in your life. So then again, when they learning to be men, even down to the adults or the males in our family, as they're learning to be men, they still can't fulfill their role because guess what? They don't feel comfortable with talking to you because it's still an overwhelming factor that they much rather go and talk to the women in the family and deal with the women with whatever it is they got going on, as opposed to them talking to their daddies and really getting their daddy's experience or their daddy's opinion, or not even their daddies, their uncles, their big cousins, their cousins, their big brother, whoever. They much rather go to the women because that's their safe haven. And I'm not sure whether or not y'all understand what I'm saying is, because I just said something. I'm not sure y'all understand what I'm saying. What that mean is, the little girls ain't talking to the fathers or the daddies or the stepfathers or the uncles or the big cuz. They ain't talking to them. The sisters and the aunts and the mothers, they ain't really talking to them like that outside of certain little things, but otherwise they going through their comfort zone because how large of a comfort zone they have. And the men only got a select few that they can go to. And even the select few that they go to are still subject to those same ways. Grew up predominantly in household dominated by women and don't truly have the outlets. And then y'all take problem with the outlets that we do have. Y'all take problem with the outlets we do have. Is it a problem? I agree when it comes too radical or too hard, when these young men don't know how to let that aggression out. And then become unnecessary foolishness that the news constantly want to tell us our young men are. What about those outlets they have, like Coach Tone and the rest of my coaches that get their blood, sweat, and tears the same way these kids do? What about those outlets? What about that support? What about that? Just wanted to give y'all something to think about. Live strong or die weak. Do man, shit ain't no pressure. Man, step up.